You ready?
All right. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Profusion. This episode, we've got Justin Roethlingshoefer. Again, I think you're the second time. No, maybe. I'm not sure. I'd have to look back. This is our 93rd episode. Thanks for coming on, Justin. How you doing?
It's so great to be here. I appreciate you for having me back.
I watch you on Facebook stories. You're always moving. You're always working out. So I admire that. So you got your book coming out, right? And I read some of the pages here, and I know your theme is consistency. That's the Roethlingshoefer. I feel like, I'm not consistent. I'm not. So, but it is what it is. But so we were talking about pre-recording. What was that the cellular testing we were talking about, right? Because my HRV,
testing.
I wanted to get into the whoop statistics. You're a whoop expert, right? So my HRV has been low for the past month or so, and you mentioned to take this cellular test, and that's going to tell me what my body is not absorbing versus what it is. Is that correct?
Correct. So what happens when you start looking at this, and I'll kind of go back to, there was a lot there in that kind of like intro point. So I'll go kind of in order. So the power of ownership within the book, what we talk about is consistency and intentionality. How do you build the most sustainable lifestyle, behavior, habit system for you? Because we rise to the level of our systems, not to the level of our goals. And we have to make sure that we can do it super intentionally, something that's built for you. So we're not copying, guessing, or complying, but rather customizing what's actually necessary based on the season of life we're in and what our body's actually asking for. How we do that is through data. We do that through information. So if the better we understand our own data, the better we understand our own information, the better. You talk about heart rate variability. Heart rate variability at its core is understanding the stress that our body is under. And I'm not talking about the stress like the pull out your hair stress. It's the stress of just our body to sustain life, to simply function. And if you go through the tree of sequence of events, chronic stress, so any type of stress we're under, a lot of us, business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, the tip of the spear, people that are constantly trying to better themselves are under chronic stress. That's just what you're under constantly, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. There's all these different stressors that you're under. Creates chronic deficiencies at the cellular level that nobody's looking at. The vitamins.
Is it because tip of the spear, right? Those are the leaders, right? And I feel like I tend to be that a lot in my life. I imagine you are too. So is it bad to be a leader?
No,
because it's causing a lot of stress internally under the skin, right?
No, it's not bad to be a leader. It's extremely positive to be a leader. But in order to do this, it's like somebody would say, well, is it bad to be a truck driver? No, it's not bad to be a truck driver, but you better wear your seatbelt. No, it's not bad to be a downhill skier. Well, you better make sure your skis are sharp and they're waxed properly.
Right.
To be a leader, you have to do what leaders do to create sustainability. That's why you see some people ultimately not steward what the platform that they've been given, this body that they've been given well enough, because they don't know how to manage the stress and strain in which they're exposing themselves to. How many leaders do you see out there that have to take year-long sabbaticals just to get themselves back to a level of functionality?
I don't know how you want me to answer this question, but I see it often.
Totally. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is okay. You don't have to live life that way.
Right.
At the end of the day, you need to surround yourself with the systems necessary to create the regeneration rhythm to allow yourself to operate in a level in which I call ownership. There's this 4-quadrant system I talk about in the book where stress is going to come. Stress is going to come at you. That is the life that you've been called for. Right. Something that you're going to continue to serve people with, that you're going to push with, that you're going to go and do what you've been called to do. There is stress that occurs here. In order to combat that, you have to be highly intentional and consistent with a recovery or regeneration routine that is personalized and customized to you to optimize how your body's functioning. That creates a rhythm so you perform in this upper right quadrant, which is what I call ownership.
Yeah.
But the downside is that 90% of people don't do that. They don't live that way. They don't think about it that way. And they just think that, oh, I have to operate in this stress state. And when I get the opportunity, I'll lean into this lower right quadrant regeneration, and I'll just make it when I can.
What is there's a lot to unpack there, but I want to know what regeneration means to you. But I like the ownership, but I also like the word leadership intelligence, right? And also how people who are good at business and work don't necessarily take care of the house. That's commonplace in general, successful people. But what does regeneration mean when you say that in your lower quadrant?
Yeah. So if you don't get that rhythm, that's when we fall into the lower left quadrant that I call the burnout.
Okay.
Burnout space. And that's where people operate heavily. And this is, again, where you have to take the sabbaticals, where you earn your disease, you earn your illness. You are operating at less than what you were created to do.
Right.
But when you talk about like this regeneration space, that's when we talk about, okay, what does self-care look like? What does the proper nutrition look like? What does the proper training mechanisms look like? What does the proper sleep optimization look like? How do you minimize stress and maximize stress resiliency? How do you give yourself environmental factors that you can start to play with? How do you optimize immune system? How do you make sure that you're hydrating properly? All of these things that have to be incredibly personalized to you based upon what's necessary. And so when we look at this, stress, which we know we're going to be exposed to, how do we identify it and become aware to it so that we can be intentional of what we do? Heart rate variability. Well, chronic stress creates chronic deficiencies at the cellular level. How do we do that? Cellular testing. To look at the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, the raw materials that the body operates off of. Andrew, you have to hear me on this.
Yeah.
Vitamins, minerals, amino acids are involved in 100% of all processes in the body to sustain life. There is not a single process, heartbeat, communication, sleep, hormone creation, digestion of food, metabolic processes, exercise, muscle building, weight loss. There's not a single process in the body that does not require vitamins, minerals, amino acids. But we don't know what is getting into our cells and what is not. We're just randomly taking supplements. We're just randomly trying diets. We're just randomly doing things. But yet we wonder why we don't see the results that we want.
So is what you're saying is like, if I'm taking 15 supplements or vitamins, which I am, I'm taking like 15 or 20. I'd have to count them. You know, at one point it was like over 30, right? But I don't know. What you're saying is some of them might not be getting into my system to doing anything, right? Is that what you're saying?
100%. We just had.
What does it do? Like I'm taking it, and what does it do? It just dissolves in my system, and it does.
So I've looked at thousands. Of people's cellular tests by now. And what happens is when we take a supplement in, when we eat, when we break down food, if you've gotten your blood done before, here's
something. I don't think I've ever had my blood done.
I mean, that's unbelievable crazy. Just even to start with. But
I hate needles.
But when you get your blood done, your blood will be in a vial. And what happens is there's 3 different components that make up your blood. There's the red and white blood cells, there's the plasma, and then there's water. And it's all intermixed. It all looks like one solution. Well, when you spin it properly, what happens is the cells float or sink to the bottom because they're the heaviest, they're the most dense.
Right.
And that's what needs to be tested. But in all of the testing that you do with your doctor, with 10X Health, with Get Blokes, with Inside Tracker, with all of these things, all they look at is the serum. So they look at what's freely flowing through the blood versus what's actually getting into the cell. And so they don't look at what's getting into the cell. They just look at what's there. So to your point that you asked me off camera before, you said, well, Justin, if I'm taking all these supplements, wouldn't it just be advantageous to stop all the supplements and then do the cellular testing? The answer is no. If you were doing the serum testing, if you were doing everybody else's testing, that would be required, because what happens is you're taking in your supplementation, it's flowing through the blood, but you don't have the ability to pull it into the cell. And so it doesn't matter if you're taking them actively or not, because we will know what's available to the cell. We'll know what the cell is actually deficient in or what it has enough of.
It doesn't matter if I'm taking it or not.
Doesn't matter if you're taking it or not.
So if I'm taking it, it'll show up. Okay. I'm confused on that part.
If you're taking your supplements,
yeah,
or if you're not taking your supplements, it doesn't matter. Because what will happen is when I do cellular testing, we will see if it's being absorbed or if it's not. So if you're taking your supplements, you can still have cellular deficiencies. Perfect example. I had a client who came in, wasn't sleeping well, was waking up in the middle of the night, had brain fog, energy fluctuations. They knew something was wrong. They're taking 20 different supplements. They went to their doctor, all their blood work, vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin D, calcium, all great levels. Perfect. No issues. No health issues. We do their cellular testing, deficient in vitamin A, deficient in vitamin C, deficient in vitamin D, deficient in vitamin B12, deficient in boron, deficient in vitamin K. Why? Because it's not getting from the serum into the cell. Their body's not able to utilize the supplements in which they're taking.
But what if I'm taking it and it is getting through to the cell?
Then it would show zero deficiency, which is great.
Yeah, but wouldn't I want to know if I'm not taking it and it's not like that? I would know that I need it, right? I don't think I would, you know what I mean? Or you're just kind of like saying,
no. So you have to come back to this, Andrew. If you look at this, if you're taking supplements and you don't have any symptoms, which you've told me is not the case, that would be a win. That's what we would want. That would be a success. That would be a change. That would be something positive. But what happens is people take all these supplements and they still have the symptoms. They still have the brain fog. They still have the fatigue. They still have the inability to sleep. They still are not seeing the changes that they're looking for. Yeah. And what ends up happening is the key indicator is that you do not have the raw material, the vitamin, the mineral, the amino acid available to you at the cellular level. So your body thinks that you're starving for these products, that your body's unable to absorb what you're using.
Okay, so the cellular test is taken, right?
Yep.
And then it tells you, okay, you're not absorbing this, right? Then what? Then what is done?
So then what our team does is we will then build out two things for you. We will build out personalized nutrition, meaning we will go, okay, here's the 14 things that you're deficient in. What foods are highly dense in those vitamins, minerals, amino acids, which have the compounds to help absorb these things into the body. And we're going to make up these food lists that are highly probable, highly favorable, and highly specific to what you need to be focused on over the next 3 months to make sure that we can reverse the cellular deficiencies. Right. The second thing we will do is custom compound a single product that's built for you, a single supplement that's built for you off of what you're deficient in. So we can give therapeutic doses of what you're deficient in, along with the enzymes and cofactors that help absorb that into the cell. So that's why after 3 months, when we retest, we always guarantee that we see a reversal in cellular deficiencies while also mitigating the symptoms that you have been experiencing from it before.
And I'll feel better, essentially. Is that what you're 100%. Saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or my vitals will be better.
Everything that you've been experiencing, the symptoms that you've been having, the things that aren't making you feel well, whether it's the brain fog, whether it's the inability to sleep, whether it's the weight gain, whether it's the inability to put on muscle, whether it's the body aches, the back aches, the shoulder pain, the headaches, those dissipate.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. And that's what is that? That's called the cellular
testing, cellular micronutrient testing.
Okay. Got it. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Later.
Let's get you going. Let's get you going.
All right. So talk about your book. It's coming out in a couple weeks, right? It's coming
April
out
23. April
April
23. It's coming. Yep.
Okay. And is there anything you want to share about that book?
I mean, the book is just, it's been so powerful just to see people's response to it. I've just been so grateful and just humbled by the responses. People like John Maxwell, people like Ben Greenfield, people like Peter Attia, who have just given absolute massive support for this book. And the cool part about this was I signed my deal with Wiley back about 9 months ago. And I had a deadline for the manuscript back in early November. And as I was getting close to the deadline, the way that I write is every morning I would go in my sauna. I would understand kind of the chapter formation in which I was working on for that week or that day or whatever. And I would verbally dictate into my phone what I wanted to, like the ideas and the processes and the thoughts that were coming to me.
Right.
I'd then put my earphones in, I'd go onto the bike and I'd start listening back to what I just verbally dictated. And then I'd sit down at my computer for 3 hours and I'd write. And that was my writing process for about 5 months to create this book. 5 days before my deadline, I finished and was super excited about the book, super excited about the stories, the flow, everything. And I remember going to sleep and I woke up in a little bit of a panic that morning going, this is not the book I was supposed to write. I had this I like heard the voice of God so intently going, that's not the book I told you to write. And I was like, nah, I can't rewrite a book in 5 days. Like this is, there's no way.
Right.
I'm not changing anything. It's too much work. This has been 5 months of like, so
save it for the sequel, right?
Exactly. So much intentionality, so much, and I can't go back on this.
Right.
Well, I go to bed that night and I wake up at about 11:45 and I had the same deep discernment and understanding. This isn't the book you were supposed to write. Like you got to go and create some change. I get up, I print the book off, and for the next 52 hours, I think I slept 4 or 5 in there. For the next 52 hours, I was in a zone like I can't even tell you. I can't even explain it. I was writing, I was copying, I was pasting. I had sticky notes everywhere. I was taking papers and rearranging them, throwing them out, crossing them out, writing notes on things. I sat down, I typed the rest of it out, came out, and it was unbelievable what came out of how this book came out. I'm just so proud of what is in it in terms of how it's going to help and serve people. And there's 2 things I always say. Number 1 is I have a hope for what this book does for you. My hope is that it empowers you on your health journey. I hope that it equips you with a way to understand how to take ownership of your health in a personalized way. And I hope it educates you on things that maybe you've heard before, but they weren't complete thoughts. Or maybe you've heard before, or they just left you confused. Or maybe you haven't heard before, and it puts you in a place where now you have a full understanding of what that means. The second thing I have is a promise, and I promise to make this thing of personalized health, proactive health, so simple to understand that you'll be able to put it into practical action in a personalized way immediately. That this will be almost like holding your hand through this journey of taking ownership of your health. And how do you actually do that in a personalized way? Because remember, I define ownership as the intersection point of accountability and responsibility while being super consistent with high degrees of intentionality. And when we can do that for what matters to us in our season of life, in what is a high priority for us, that is when everything changes. And so that's what this book is about, is how do you take ownership of your health in a personalized way to prevent chronic illness that you're stepping into unknowingly because you're unaware or simply not understanding the consequences to some of your actions and behaviors, so that you can live differently and realize a life that is different.
Do you follow, and I read Brian Johnson. Are you familiar with him at all?
Yeah. Yep.
I read his book. It was so bad. It's called Don't Die. Don't read it. It's your book, read it. But I mean, it was the most bizarre book I've ever. Have you read it yet?
I won't read it. I'm not a Brian Johnson fan because at the end of the day,
Well, so yeah. So why aren't you a fan? Because he's he's in the space, right?
So I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant, and hopefully people don't shut this off.
Most people probably don't know who he is, but
the biggest issue I have, even with the comment that was just made, because that is the summation of the industry, is when you think about biohacking, health, wellness, performance, it's all about how many more supplements can I take? How many more crazy things can I do? How many more off the cuff, expensive protocols can I get? What type of machinery can I put into my home? What kind of different blood transfusions or peptides or hormone therapies or rectal enemas can I do to get an extra 5 days on my life? But yet there's no evidence to any of these things. And what happens is people end up doing one of four things. They end up guessing what they need to do, meaning completely guessing what their body requires or what they need. They end up copying, which what a lot of people have tried to do with Brian Johnson is they start copying his protocols and trying to do all these things. They simply comply with what a lot of these experts say, but the experts don't know Andrew from Adam. And so they're just like, oh, Andrew, I think you should do this. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm going to follow. Or you're customizing. But nobody's customizing because it's too hard to do. It's too hard to figure out what Andrew needs. It takes too much care. It takes too much attention to detail. It takes too much time. It takes too much energy. Well, that's the exact thing that we wanted to do. That's the exact thing that Own It wants to do, is they want to know who Andrew is. They want to know what's going on inside Andrew's body. They want to know what Andrew's prioritizing. They want to know what Andrew needs. They want to know what season of life Andrew is in, so they can build something, what we call a life by design, that is based around what you require, so we can see you have a greater breakthrough at the end of the day. And so what Brian Johnson is doing, Brian spent at the end of the day, Brian's spending over $1 million on his body every single year with weird supplements, with weird experimental therapies, with all of these things. The other day he took blood literally from his son and injected it into himself. Like I'm telling you, this experiment that Brian's on is not going to end well. And you're looking at a lot of these other people, and I won't name names, but there's probably 4 people that are heavy in this biohacking space, that if we could fast forward and look into the future, you're going to see that they are not going to have the results that they're saying they're going to be having, because they're going off of all of these statements that are simply inaccurate, have no data, have no scientific backing, and have no validity. And all that's happened is they've gotten a following because they were trying something that was so extreme. Extremism gets eyeballs, gets attention. But extremism is not where we live to create longevity. We have to make sure that it's personalized, tailored, and customized to what your body needs, most specifically at the cellular level, and then having a language that we communicate back and forth with our body through HRV to understand how it's adapting to the things that we're exposing it to.
Yeah, I mean, he might be going a little bit off the rails on some of the things, and some of it looks crazy, but he might be onto a few things as well, personally. And he's spending a lot of money, so I don't have to spend it necessarily, and so so I think there's some validity to it, but he's definitely an extremist. He's definitely he's doing a lot of things with his skin. But who knows? I think at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. We'll see how long he lives, right? I mean, the way he's going, he thinks he's going to live in excess of 120 is his goal, right? But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen there? But you mentioned like Peter Attia. Who are some of your mentors that? And I always love to hear like who are you reading? Who are you learning from? Who are you pulling besides the science? Who are you pulling your concepts from? Obviously, Brian Johnson isn't one of them. But who are you pulling info from? Who are you following?
Yeah, so Ben Greenfield and I have a really great relationship.
Nice.
Ben and I have been friends for probably the last 4 years, and we've spent time together in person, in deep communication. We've done podcasts together. We've done studies together. So there's a lot of work that we're doing in both of those sectors. So obviously Ben's a big one. Another one that we've just been really close for a while. Again, I mentioned is Peter Attia, and just taking what is known science, taking what has a lot of validity to it, and making sure that we're making it applicable and actionable for people. At the end of the day, is what it's all about. You start to look at a lot of these wellness spas that are coming up. We're doing so much research with people in the wellness spa space because we have so much data to go off of. And so we're doing a lot of our own research. We're looking at a lot of the things that we're implementing. We're looking at a lot of the results. Remember, I'm all about results. And so if you're looking at our tens of thousands of clients who have come through, who we can take from chronic micronutrient deficiency and now reverse that, and then take a look at HRV and correlate to a 40% increase in HRV as we start to see these cellular deficiencies drop. And then all of a sudden we can also linearly see that there's a positive impact on symptom elimination. Like, how can you not just say, this is where we're going. This is where it's at. This is what's happening. Because even James Clear, like we've talked so many times when it comes to habit formation, what does it actually look like?
He's the Atomic Habits guy, right? He wrote that.
Correct. What does it look like to actually build positive habits? What does it look like to engage in these positive habits? What does it look like to take these over the course of time? Andrew Huberman's another one that has been able to highlight certain experts in these spaces that we've been able to collaborate deeply with. And so that's where a lot of the mentorship comes in collaboration, in taking what we do and exposing it to large amounts of people so that we can ultimately get the data sets to continue to validate the direction that we're going. But more importantly is not going off emotion, not going off feelings, not going off opinions, but allowing data to drive direction. When data drives direction, data determines decisions. That's how you know you're going to have something that's sustainable, something that's long lasting, something that's transformational, and something that will be extremely impactful to people over the course of time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for one second you said, results, but I also think I'm a believer in process, right? Too, but you've got the process for this as well.
Oh my gosh, that's the whole thing is right. At the beginning of every single one of my keynotes. So if anybody's listened to this and then ever sees a keynote, they'll know the answers already. But I say, and I'll do it with you. I'll say, okay, Andrew, define health for me. When I say health, what word pops up or what words pop up? Just call them out. Just,
I mean,
I'm going to hold you to words. What words come up for you when I say health? Muscles.
Muscles.
Sure. What else?
Probably cardio, like ability to run distance. Endurance. Maybe glow.
Glow, like the way you look.
Glow. Like alive, alive in the eye. Probably if I had three things, there's like glow or sometimes people have the lights are on, but nobody's home. You know what I mean?
Totally get it.
Zoned out. But I would say those three things. What I say? Muscles,
endurance, and like a healthy glow. A lot of other words I usually get are things like weight loss, things like high levels of sleep, things like mental clarity, things like focus, things like energy. Those are words I get when I ask people, what is, when I say health, what do you get?
Yeah.
Then I go, okay, give me the same thought process, but define the word performance. So what words or word comes to your mind when you think of performance?
So I'm reading a book called With Winning in Mind by Lanny Bassam right now. Have you read this or heard about it? Okay. So I love his definition of.
I want your definition.
Well,
just a word.
One word. I
Yep.
mean, I would go with process because I agree with what he's saying.
So,
And
so a
I would
lot of
process.
people who haven't read that book will
Right.
say winning, will say attaining a goal, efficiency, excellence.
Yeah, excellence
These are all words that come along with performance. Now, here's what I sum this up as. Everything that you said, muscles, cardio, a glow, the other words I talked about with health, the things we talked about with performance, every single one of those for both of them are outcomes. They're results driven. And that's what the world has told us to do, is to focus on the results.
Right.
But the way in which we ultimately get to the results, the way in which I define the mindset that we have to show up as with is a mindset of inevitability. It's inevitable that we are going to have an outcome. It's inevitable that we are going to get a result. Either you're going to glow or you're not going to glow. Either you're going to have muscles or you're not going to have muscles. Either you're going to play with excellence or you won't play with excellence. Either you're going to show up attaining a goal or not attaining a goal. The outcome is inevitable. But what determines the inevitability is your process.
Right.
And that is why I say you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And the system that own it, we have built, that's personalized, that's customized, that is an N of one solution, is the way in which we guarantee results. Like that is the way we go. People want results. People want to put the time, effort, and resources behind something, behind a process that they're going to learn, that they're going to understand, so that they get the results that they're ultimately seeking.
Yeah. So I would when I come to you, I'm not gonna focus on the results. I'm gonna focus on the process. That's what I'm gonna do.
And that's what we ask everybody to do. But as you focus on the process and as you lean in on the process, that's when your results will come. Because here's the other thing. Here's the other thing I'll say to you. And I would hold you to this, is if you came to us for a year and a half, and you didn't see results, would you be happy?
No.
Exactly. Right. So you have to have an outcome. You have to have results. If your system or your process doesn't create results, it's not a good system. It's not a good process.
Right.
And so that's why we are so bullish about talking about the personalization, the customization, the intentionality, the data driving direction of our process, the N of one solution, so that we can guarantee results. Because results are what people want. But in order to get them what they want, you need to give them what they need, which is a new system and a new process.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm on Whoop. I told you about this, the Whoop strap. And sometimes I think it controls my life, right? Like would I worry about these things if I didn't have it? No, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? So it's a little like, but I guess it's helping find blind spots in my health. I guess would be kind of the psychology behind it.
There's a big part of that. And there's a big part of that I talk about often when it comes to creating some level of extremism, like people that don't fully understand the data. It starts to run your life, or it starts to become obsessive. It starts to become something that is all encompassing, because you have to realize that your journey is nonlinear. You're going to have high days, you're going to have low days, but there's a reason as to why you have high days and low days. And if you don't know how to figure out the reason, you're going to constantly be in this anxiety induced cycle that's like, oh, am I going up? Am I going down? What's happening? What decision do I have to make? What do I have to change? But it can become so much simpler than that when you actually understand what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and what's caused the HRV increase or the HRV decrease or the sleep quality increase or the sleep quality decrease. It's about being able to understand what you're doing outside of that that's causing those fluctuations.
Yeah. I mean, and leaders, which tip of the spear you mentioned earlier, is that, that can, stress can kill people. It'll result in internal, heart attacks or what not, other items. So
I'll language add is chronic stress will kill people.
yeah, chronic stress. Okay. Even not chronic stress, like if I guess if well,
Acute stresses are necessary. They are 100% necessary to maintain high quality of life in this world.
And acute stress is
having a really stressful day. Let me back up, because that's a terrible example. Acute stress would be training for a marathon. Acute stress. A really hard workout. Acute stress.
Like acute stress.
A really hard conversation with your spouse. Acute stress.
Right.
Trying to determine which direction your business is going to go.
But I feel like, that acute stress can result in health issues, right?
Chronic stress can.
But acute stress can?
Acute stress is necessary. This is what I talk about this in my book all the time. It's an entire chapter. How do you do stress differently? When you look at chronic versus acute stress, your body doesn't have the opportunity to fully recover from. So you end up falling into that burnout space, which chronic stress, remember, let's go back to the cycle. Chronic stress creates chronic deficiencies, creates chronic symptoms, creates chronic illness. And so if we chronically live in this degree of stress, this is where we get injured. Let's go to athletes.
Right.
It's not going out and playing a soccer game once a week that's going to hurt you. It's when you play 7 games in 10 days or 10 games in 20 days that you ultimately see chronic injuries, overuse injuries, tendonitis, these types of things. It's the chronic stress, the chronic overuse. What happens when people retire? They come to Florida. They don't leave their air-conditioned homes. They eat at the first hankering of hunger. And ultimately, they end up dying by the age of 72 because they've failed to find ways to get those intermittent bouts of stress into their life anymore.
A lot of clients that are in their, you have a lot of clients in their 70s, because that's where really like quality of life starts to taper.
Oh, but it starts.
Well, it can start for people in their 30s and 40s who don't take care of their weight or
but what happens in your 50s, 60s, and 70s starts in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. Right. Like that's what people are failing to understand, is this is not something that happens overnight. I talk about this all the time. Your diabetes you didn't go to bed one night and wake up the next day with diabetes. You ultimately had 15, 20 years of chronic stress, of inability to control blood sugar, that ultimately led to the one blood test that you got that now shows that you have an A1C of 8.9. And now you're officially a diabetic. And wow, how did I get here? Well, if you look back, the 15 to 20 years of actions that how you showed up gave chronic stress on your body that it could not handle anymore. And that's where we ultimately get to. And so what I say the definition of aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And as you continually pursue comfortability, it ages you exponentially, because your body becomes unable and loses the capacity to handle, tolerate, and be resilient to stress.
Do you meditate?
I do prayer, breath work, and just like straight up quiet time. If you want to call that meditation, sure.
Right. Sometimes I think breath work is better than meditating, but that's my own opinion.
Oh, the data shows that. The data shows that it has a higher.
Essentially attempting to control my breathing while I'm meditating, right? So it's similar. I get that.
Yeah, the data shows that breath work actually has a bigger impact on HRV increases than meditation alone.
Yeah, one of my favorite breath works is fake yawning. I'm sure you've heard of this.
The cyclic sigh.
The fake yawn to recalibrate everything. So I teach my kids that.
Yeah.
Before we do something, they fight me on it. No, it looks stupid. No, I'll just do. But is the fake yawn better than the just deep breath? Do you have any opinion on that?
I mean, a single breath won't. There's no data on it. I couldn't answer that for you. But repeated cyclic sighs, so 2 inhales through the nose, inhale, exhale, on a cycle of about 15 to 20, will get you into that parasympathetic state very quickly, which is really powerful.
15 to 20 in twice, sharp, out, right? In twice, out. It takes 15 to 20 to get you there, not 3 or 2.
All the research, like I said, shows somewhere in that 15 to 20 repetitions will get you there, in a really good focus point.
Yeah. All right, Justin. Hey, everybody out there, follow this guy, Facebook, Instagram, and just check his name. You'll be able to track him down. And your book is The Power of Ownership, coming out April 23rd.
Yes, sir. thepowerofownershipbook.com is where you can pick that up. A whole bunch of pre-order bonuses that are included in that. You're going to have 3 different virtual sessions that are live with myself, where we'll be able to dive in really cool and really in-depthly. You'll be a part of the launch team, which will have a whole bunch of other bonuses as well, including a live event down here in Miami with myself, and then be entered in to win a free year of coaching, actually. So we've got a really cool bonus structure set up for anybody who pre-orders that book, and that's thepowerofownershipbook.com anytime before April 23rd.
Plus, get the cellular testing to optimize our health.
Yeah, you want to go to get the cellular testing.
Yeah,
if you want to get the cellular testing, ownittesting.com. Ownittesting.com is where you can pick that up. And
like
if you go,
$600.
if you go to ownittesting.com, we'll have the Profusion podcast discount on there for you. So ownittesting.com, all set.
So that is that's one time, or you need to take that twice, or is that ongoing annually? How does that work? The cellular testing?
Yeah, typically what we like to say to our clients is anywhere between every 3 to 6 months you want to retest. So somewhere between 2 and 4 times a year is where you want to get that done.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Justin.
Always great being with you, Andrew.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yep.